Our next session is called Blind Algorithms and Society 5.0, A Brave New World or a World Without Us. That's your cue to settle down, y'all. The session explores how design can play a crucial role in creating a more inclusive and equitable society 5.0 by addressing issues like the digital divide, AI biases, and empowering creative communities. Now again, if you have any questions or comments on the topic you'd like to talk more about, I highly encourage you to participate in our fireside chat happening at the end of this session. This goes the same for our online audience. You can place your questions at the comments section of our live happening on Design Center's Facebook and YouTube accounts. The speaker for this session, Blind Algorithms and Society 5.0, is the founder and CEO of ICMG Next, a consultancy that incubates, builds, and stewards sociocultural and impactful business endeavors in partnership and co-creation with organizations designing for future generations. A practitioner of the future, a mentor, an adjunct lecturer, Ms. Anna Ariola Kanada.
Good afternoon, everyone. The previous amazing talk by Nicola and Sam really was inspirational, and I think that it's appropriate for something that really grounds itself in indigenous heritage, culture, sustainability that we talk about. How might we, with technology, move that forward? So we're going to start with a little narrative. These are little thought pieces that I'm going to leave with all of you about what does a potential inclusive vision for this next technology look like, how each of you will be able to play a role in this. How many in the audience, if I can see you raise your hands, have seen the Sony Pictures project, The Creator? Not very many of you, if any. That's great. Okay, so a few people up at the top. I would really encourage all of you, any of you that are scared or inspired by this incredible transformational period that we're living through right now, to spend some time thinking about this topic by watching this movie. It's one of the best cinematic approaches to dealing with the hard truths of what a hypothetical future might look like. Within this, it's a story about how does humanity, culture, heritage, stories, history maintain itself, yet create a way forward. More often than not, previous attempts to talk about what does and how might this new technology pose a threat to humankind show itself in more instances like the example that I have up on screen right now, which, as many of you may have seen the movie Dune. It really starts with this aspect of the Butlerian jihad, of which man-made, human-made AI instantiations wreak havoc on our planet Earth. It seems a bit sci-fi, far-fetched. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we are making pretty far advancements. This is a project that the team has been able to help out with Kawasaki Heavy Industries. Now, does AI, does robotics pose a threat to replacing any of us? We're going to get into those topics. I would say no. But the advancements are pretty profound that, at least within our lifetime, we will be seeing interesting uses of how this technology will become integrated into our lives. So, the name of my talk is Echoes of Humanity. Fitting, I think, not knowing who I was going to follow with Nicola and Sam's talk about culture preservation, his spoken word history, indigenous survival, and sustaining the linguistic and cultural aspects for generations to follow. If you think about the echo of society, the echoes of our past that will resonate into the future, that's the topic I chose, interestingly enough. I want to talk first about what does it mean to explore citizenship and humanity within this future of AI, and how AI will influence every aspect of society. And those of you that are going to be creating it here in the audience as designers. The answer, if we look into, yeah, it is a bit of a brat topic. Moving into this high-level meta topic for this section, Society 5.0, AI is one ingredient, one part of the variables that will make up our future existence. We're creating a future that includes little tiny instances that will make up every aspect of our daily life. It'll amplify the existing beautiful things we love about the communities that we exist in, that we come from, but unfortunately will also further amplify inequalities. Let's just talk about what the last session was trying to get at. Sustaining the amazing linguistic heritage of the archipelagos here across the Philippines. The languages that are heritagely embedded into the roots of this land. How much of that is digitized? How much of that is photographed? How much of that is written down? It's one thing to ask any individual to do the emotional effort, the emotional lift to keep that alive. One of the best ways to do that is to find a way to digitize it. And I'm basically riffing on the previous talk right now. Like, I have other things I wanted to talk about, but this is important. Because where I come from, I'm Mexican American. My parents immigrated undocumented into the United States. I'm now an immigrant myself living in Japan, where we face a very similar situation as you all hear. We have a lot of regional linguistic and cultural areas across the island of Japan, just like you do here across the archipelagos. None of it's digitized. Think about that. Think about that, how that's going to affect you as a citizen and the society of which you reside. Think about all of the countries, all of the cultures around the world are going to need to struggle with this too. There are no data sets to build this vision that we all want to have with AI. Everything that we use today, if you've been playing with any of it, is made from colonial society. A lot of it's white, Latin, and so we really need to rally behind that. And I think the last talk really dove into that and really talked about the urgency, not just through art and craft and narrative, but scientifically, as designers and creatives, we need to find ways to create new instances of this culture, to digitize an artifact so that we can build a library, a data set around this. Now, this is a bit of a provocative question because it's a huge and daunting task, but I think that if we talk now and talk about citizenship and we set the stage for this as an initial discussion of how AI's societal impact will affect our environments, I wouldn't even say it's definitely not Gen X. It's not going to be the millennials. It's not going to be Gen Z. Gen Z will start this work. It's going to be the alpha generation. It's going to be my children, your yet to be born, your youngest children here that are going to have to really build this and make this into a technological reality. So as you think about what does it mean in this brat instance of how we might co-create the sustainability of our cultures, it's pretty interesting to start thinking about this. So, Society 5.0, it was a term you just heard. What that means and how that is that relationship to the citizen aspect I just rose, it's about the digital twin. How many in the audience here, if you could raise your hands, know what the digital twin is? Okay, I see a few hands going up. So that's okay. That's what I'm here for. And hopefully you all have a lot of questions later in the Q&A session. The digital twin is essentially, if you think about the Marvel multiverse, it's our reality multiverse. It is literally a digital clone of the reality that we're in right now. So if you think about what does this instance, this space now that we hold, what is the digital twin? It's every one of you holding an artifact that is beaconing data to your carrier and saying, you, who you are, your life and your little device are sitting here in this audience. This room holds so many people in a 3D architectural graph of it. The lighting, the screen, what's the health of everything, what may go out, what may break, what may need to get fixed. That's a high-level explanation of a digital twin. The work that my team and I are thinking about, and this really started when I was at Microsoft, is how do we bring a humanistic approach to solve for using modern design techniques to make sure that this digital twin, one, is useful, doesn't cause harm, and if it does cause harm, let's mitigate that. Let's red team those harms and solve for those problems and anticipate that, what that might be, so that we can get ahead of these situations. But the digital twin has a huge opportunity for everything that you create. If you think about, I mean, whether it's a trend or not, I don't know. Like if you think about NFC and Web3, those are literally digital twin instances of a physical object you might have created. It could be a piece of digital indigenous artwork. It could be spoken narrative story like we just heard in the previous session. And there's an online version and you might be able to get a copy so you can have it constantly playing somewhere. But there's opportunity that is available within this space, economic growth, innovation, societal benefits, if we design it mindfully into this technology. It, again, causes potential risks, and how do we mitigate those risks? And how do we ensure that we're building for inclusion versus exclusion? How do we build for equality and holding space versus inequality? These are things I'd like for all of you to talk about throughout the course of this conference and think about and come up to me and discuss later as well. The divides of which this future environment poses for all of us and the promises of which it proposes for all of us opens up interesting perils that we need to navigate within an AI-driven society. AI's potential is to improve, ideally, everyone that touches it, comes in contact or is surrounded by, to making your life more useful, more helpful, so that hopefully you can spend less effort doing the things that don't bring you joy and allow you to spend more time being more mindful about things that do bring you joy. This can include improvements of healthcare, how we approach education, environmental and sustainability approaches, new novel ways of looking at that we may not have thought of as a species. But it also includes the risk of deepening these social divides, as we talked about with the urban architectural example from the previous section. So as you think about how the promises and the perils of this opportunity face each and every one of you as you go out into the world after this talk, think about the tensions that are going to be set up and what are those risks that you're going to need to think about and mitigate. This is a really interesting design challenge as creatives that are here, to think about with your colleagues, to check in with your family members who may or may not be playing with this. And looping back into the citizen aspect, if you think about how AI, or generative AI, as it's now called, is possibly harmful in the way that we maintain our own citizenship and how we want to create community in the aspects of false news, we need to ask ourselves, making sure that we're looking into the providence of anything that seems suspect or too good to be true, to figure out if it is factual. Can it be backed up by real sources, or was it a byproduct of being created by somebody with ill intent or harm. So please think about that. These are real dangers that are currently in a variety of different countries right now that are really looking to exclude billions along this engagement within the digital revolution. Understanding and how designers can think about not being in fear of this, to a degree, amazing and awe-inducing technology is something you need to think about no differently than maybe a physical object you bring to your craft, a digital tool you might use, like a Figma. Use generative AI, especially if you think about its most raw form right now, like ChatGPT or the other ChatGPT-like Copilot from Microsoft, as a team member. And I have this debate with my own kids. So I'm a mother of 4. I have a 22, a 21, a 15-year-old, and a almost 2-year-old. And my oldest is actually an illustration liberal arts student right now. And they are viscerally against using AI because they publish their own art on Instagram and whatnot. And it's been really hard to help them understand through my own lived experiences, having been part of the teams that are creating these technologies since I was working at Samsung and Facebook and Microsoft, and now what I'm doing now, that there are different ways of using it. Instead of going, make me an image that looks like a Wes Anderson movie. Like, yes, you can do that, but do it in a way that might help you, that may create an instance where you can then get a new perspective as a mood board or an ideation to go off and do your own original thing. So if you think about how you approach generative AI as a companion, as a colleague, as a research fellow, as somebody that you can really entrust, and at least in my own experience, when you're using it well, it becomes an entrusted little repository of knowledge that you can classify, and you can create multiple classifiers. These are what are called AI agents. And you can say, today I want to go talk about this, or I want to do that. And you can go into that little agent area, and it will always remember all the last instances you've had. And it's not really readily available right now for most people, but the era of agent is really much upon us. And that means all of your little agents that you've created to do special tasks, you'll soon be able to orchestrate them as teams. One of my colleagues from Microsoft who I work with now had this amazing demo where he created a bunch of little agents. One was a producer, one was a writer, script writer, one was an editor, one was a voice talent, and he made a podcast by just giving a thematic definition and said, this is the team, go create something, and it was amazing. And again, coming back to the creatives in the room, that doesn't mean you're out of a job if you're any part of that industry. It just means you have to think about how do you then become that director, that producer, that orchestrator, and augment it with the real team members that you're working with to create something even more amazing, more magical that can come out of that. So from a designer's perspective, and having that understanding and being able to go into a creative space where you can collaborate and co-create is going to be fantastic, I think. And then if you can apply the heritage and the cultural locality, there's a word that one of my fellow researchers from Microsoft, Bill Buxton, a luminary in the design industry, he said a word that I've really wrapped my head around that I think it's really critical to the conversations that we're having here, called ubiety, which means hyper-local. If you think about ethnography, ubiety is the even more hyper-local context of an instance that you're designing for, a problem you're trying to solve for, and like just a soulful way of approaching anything you might want to tackle as a challenge. And so think about everything you do from an ubiety aspect, highlight the design and how you might leverage this new technology as an amazing solution that can empower yourself, your community, and people around you. It doesn't solve for the fact that it's not going to understand all the many languages of this beautiful country. That's where it's going to take finding a way to digitize all that and then create a data set around it. Now, everything that you've experienced from the early versions of ChatGPT were made on these massive Latin-based models of data, most likely scraped from the web or created from social network platforms. But the good thing about generative AI now is you can build these really hyper-productive, smaller data set models that you can more realistically bring your cultural, linguistic, heritage elements that you want to bring forward into an Ubeidi type project. Systems. The systems of which this is all built upon, as I mentioned previously, are ripe for harm, especially with vulnerable communities. We were talking earlier, hypothetically, with someone down where I was seated, about how AI might potentially hurt future generations. One example, if we think about systems and the biases that might be in the systems, is, let me propose an example. You have a large collection of a deceased loved one, video, potentially even holography, and you put that into a system because you want your grandmother to always be around for future generations. But with the advancements of computer vision and with wearables, mixed reality, right now it's pretty discernible. That's a polygon, that's a video game versus reality, but it could hypothetically become very hyper-realistic that you may always just have your grandmother around. But little ones that don't know any better and can't discern from reality versus what's not reality, that could also be very harmful. That's a real problem that we were looking at when I was at Facebook, if you think about where Oculus is heading. And so, as a challenge again, back to the design and the research community, to the stewarding leaders that are in this audience, think about these things, because the systems of which we're designing, we're building for, to protect and to serve, with massive amounts of joy, we need to think about the next generation that this may be a disservice to, the alpha generation, post-alpha generation. And think about how the challenges and the problems we're solving for, we're thinking about those outliers, and we don't perpetuate inequalities, and that we're always looking to find a way to ensure that the ethicality of the approaches that we're problem solving are always balanced with a mitigation plan. Now, mitigating harms and biases, that's not probably any of you that are in design school or architecture or in urban planning or in culinary arts or in business ever thought you'd need to think about, but you do. Because it's not a problem that select few can solve, it's a problem that everyone needs to solve. It's just like as if you were in the workplace and you saw ill acted upon behavior, you would call that behavior out. As you notice this, as you use the system, you need to be able to put your good intent, your wholesomeness back into the system itself so that it becomes better for everyone else that will follow you. Diversity. Looking at not only ensuring that populations are protected, but there are so many other aspects, whether it's cognitive superpowers, whether it's the ability to have unique ways of how you engage your world. Maybe you can hear, you have listening skills, maybe you might have lost your sight. How do you design and think about mitigating these aspects for the culture and the diversity that you're bringing into the system itself? I saw this when I was working at Samsung. There's this beautiful culture store, and I saw this neon piece of artwork, and I had to take a screenshot of it. But blend your culture, blend your thoughts, blend your X into what it is that you use and how you use it in your daily life. Now with Apple iOS 18, if any of you have upgraded, you've got Apple AI. Everything you do, your messages, and how you use it, it's not a toy, you're training it. Tim Cook loves that you're going to use AI emoji. Zuck loves the fact that you may be using Instagram AI, whatever it is. Elon Musk probably loves that you're maybe still on Twitter. Everything you do is in benefit for somebody's potential ill means. And just think about how you're using it before you actually do use it. And again, putting the goodness, the wholesomeness back into the systems of which we're protecting to preserve, in this case, around diversity and equity within AI. Community. I've heard so much this morning about community. So much about history, spoken oral history, beauty that has to be collected and created. And I would say to the community aspect of this, that it's about using some of the best of what AI is capable today and finding ways to break down unique barriers, especially for the creative communities and what we face in adopting these AI technologies, to fill these technological gaps and to close these fears of losing creative control. One way might be to take Gen AI and apply it to industrial design. Using AI and physicality to glean instances off of the real world. We talked about touching the ground and feeling the soil beneath us and touching the tips and the blades of the grass and being able to see the mountains. Well, you can think about that. You can think about how you're going to work with that artwork and bring that into your model or the AI project that you're working on, because it emphasizes the importance of supporting these thoughts, these visions, these creativities, this community that you're looking to harness AI for innovation and for good. Future. AI and the future of citizenship. Now more than ever, I think that the concept of what citizenship means, it's regional, it's that hyperlocality, that ubiity aspect, will come to define what the future of human rights is and what it represents, how we protect our communities and our loved ones, and how we can actively participate within this inclusion of the society that now, unfortunately, is dominated by AI decision-making. Use this superpower wisely. Use it for good, not for bad. And I encourage all of you to reflect on the aspects of the physicality, the philosophical, and the civic shifts that are happening now. I guarantee you, what you think you know about AI right now, what I thought I knew about AI a year ago, 6 months from now, it'll be radically different. In cases for us in the development that we're doing, we sometimes make a decision, I'm gonna wait 6 to 9 months, because if I start now, something will come out 9 to 6 months from now that will have made what we just did obsolete or even faster to do. So it's kind of this crazy waiting game, but it doesn't mean you don't have to stop and not learn about this technology. Lastly is commitment. Committing to the aspects of what we just discussed, citizenship, thinking about the digital twin as it will become in our physicality spaces, thinking about how this will be played towards diversity and designing for systems and preservation, making sure that we're thinking about how we will reinforce these messages into how we will augment our own lives in the very near future, to ensure that our communities and our commitment to those communities and our loved ones stay open and equitable and inclusive. The last thought, the last call to action I'd love to leave with all of you is tacos. The future of AI and humanity is deeply intertwined right now. We will design a world that includes everyone, but we can only do that in partnership with each of you. Let's leave tomorrow better than the way we found it today by making sure the little micro inclusions that we're making with this technology are going to not widen or deepen the divide, but to close it and to feel that like a fast step forward is easy to connect to the history and the past of our family and our cultures, whether that's deep through audiovisual, textual, but various forms of thought-provoking art and creativity that all of you will create. And that's my Echoes of Humanity talk. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope. The last session talked about hope. I also want to talk about hope. So thank you. You can bother me anytime you want. Send me messages on that previously Bird platform or Instagram. I welcome all your communications and questions, or just say hi. And thank you very much for your time today. Cheers, y'all.
Great session. Thank you so much, Ms. Anna Arreola, Kanada.